Hey everyone, this is Zephyr, and welcome to the BaileyWiki channel, where we teach everyday DMs how to create truly amazing experiences for their players by combining art and technology. We also make modular systems and scenes that you can use without any setup, and some of our latest release for Foundry Virtual Tabletop is going to be the backdrop for today's video on getting content for FoundryVTT. Foundry is well known for its massive community development scene and the bevy of modules available. While we usually talk about technical modules that allow you to do new and interesting things in Foundry, we don't always talk about the content modules, the things that give you additional pieces to play with, whether those are scenes, maps, or tokens, or something else entirely. So today we want to break down how you can find those and how you can get those into your games, with a slight focus on premium content, as you may be wanting to get official integrations or some really high quality maps or adventures to use in your games. Now there's a lot of ways to find and bring in content to your games, so we're going to cover some of the big ticket areas, and we've annotated this video quite heavily with timestamps so you can jump around to the sections most relevant to you. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in to how you can get some additional content into Foundry, beginning first with ways to grab content from directly inside. The first and probably most obvious place to get content for Foundry is right in your FoundryVTT installation. When you're on your setup, if you go to the add-on module section and you just click on install module, you can then browse all the different add-on modules that are available for Foundry. There are a ton of these, and these range from the technical to the subject of our video today, and it's going to be content. So when we go into content packs, we can see all kinds of things in here. And these will range from the tokens to general artwork to full adventures, etc. And that's what we're really focusing on here today. And you can see for these pieces that say like not owned, etc., there are little links that you can click on to open into another window. So if you do that, it'll take you to the page for this particular content on Foundry's website. These, if they have a purchase, will have a link to purchase here, and that will either take you to an additional site or it will take you to the Patreon if it is a part of a membership program via Patreon. It is integrated with the Foundry Patreon system. But we'll cover that a little bit more in a bit. But basically through here, you can find all kinds of great free content and premium content. Again, it'll have that little lock symbol and it'll tell you that it's not owned if it is something that you do need to purchase. But you can find plenty of wonderful creations that are completely free to you as well. If for whatever reason you want to view these on the website, if you go to the FoundryVTT homepage and you click on the drop down in the top left, you can navigate to the Systems and Modules section. And here you can find all of those different categories that we mentioned earlier. You can also see all of the different premium content providers if you want to browse by the particular author of that content. And again, if you go into the content packs, you can then find all kinds of great features here. One caveat to using the website is that it isn't going to necessarily tell you if it's a premium module or if it is a free module until you click into the actual module itself. I also want to take the time now to mention content importers. Content importers are going to be things that allow you to bring things into your system, the most famous of which is probably going to be the D&D Beyond importer that we've referenced on the channel a few times from Mr. Primate. And these are all going to be different things that either bring in stuff from, say, PDFs or from third-party websites into your Foundry installation. So again, the D&D Beyond importer is a pretty famous one where you're linking your D&D Beyond profile and then bring that content in. So these are another thing to consider, and they're going to vary wildly from system to system. But that's another way you can bring in content from third-party sources. Staying within Foundry directly, there is also the new Foundry Marketplace. So if you click on that drop down again and we go to Official Marketplace, that'll take you to a separate site that is the FoundryVTT Marketplace store. These are all going to be premium content modules. There may be a few kind of premier free samples essentially from different creators, but for the most part, this is going to be a premium content marketplace. Here you can find things from, say, Kobold Press or MCDM or the Foundry team themselves. And this is a great way to look around and see the official integrations for different systems and some of the greatest offerings there are for these modules and content for running your games. You can see things such as the best-selling or look through recently updated and recently reviewed pieces for looking through that. And there's also a nice little Discover queue that you can go through and look at different categories, etc. So this is another great place to check out for all of your content needs. Once you've made any purchases in the marketplace, then as I mentioned, it's already added to your account, and you'll be able to download that directly from the Foundry add-on module browser. It should no longer say unavailable or have that lock mechanism next to it. You'll be able to just download it. Kind of adjacent to purchasing modules directly through Foundry or installing them directly through Foundry are hosting service marketplaces, such as the Forge's Bazaar here. The Forge Bazaar has all of the modules in the Foundry module browser and may also have some extra pieces that are part of the Bazaar marketplace specifically. So if you're on this, then you can go into the category. It has the same kind of categories as the Foundry modules, so you can look at your content packs and turn those on. In here you can see all kinds of things, again, free as well as some premium options. Important to note, as I mentioned earlier, this may also have some Bazaar Marketplace exclusive offers as opposed to the ones that are purchasable through Foundry. You are still able to move these over to other installations if you discontinue using the Forge or if you want to have them installed on kind of a local testing instance. But you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. So one option is to toggle on the Bazaar Marketplace inclusive to see what's on the Bazaar, or turn it the other direction if you want to make sure that you're only grabbing things that are either free or are included in the Foundry ecosystem itself, so it's easier for you to grab and move around. Similarly to making purchases on the Foundry Marketplace, once you purchase anything on the Bazaar here, it's going to get linked to your Forge account. You're going to be able to install it into your Forge instances, no problem. For external sites, Patreon is, of course, an incredibly popular location to gain additional content for Foundry. And to get that Patreon content, then you can simply go and become a member of whatever Patreon you want. So we're looking at the BaileyWiki Patreon right now, and look through their membership options to make sure that you select the appropriate one that includes the content that you want. For example, on our Foundry Basic track, this is all of our 2D maps and systems. If you wanted to get the 3D versions, so the 3D map modules and some of our more advanced pieces, then I would select that. I could also choose to get something like all the things if I also wanted to have the Dungeon Draft access in addition to the various Foundry pieces, etc. But whatever it is and whatever Patreon you're taking a look at, select the appropriate membership that includes the features that you want. When it comes to actually getting your Patreon content imported into your worlds and your instances, the first thing you'll want to do is go to the FoundryVTT website. In the top right, you've got your name. If you're not logged in, it'll have an option to sign in. When you click on that and go to Edit Profile, there is a section called Linked Accounts. I'll go ahead and unlink it to demonstrate here. And now I have the option to link Patreon. When you go in and link Patreon, you'll have your sign-in options. And you can simply allow that. And then when you have this linked, you can then go into the subscribed content section, and you can see everything you get from your Patreon subscriptions. So this is where you can verify what Patreon content you have access to. Double check that against what you think you should be getting according to the Patreon page and what's actually showing up here. And make sure that all of that is good to go. And then you'll be able to install these from the Foundry module browser. It's important to note that these are going to be the Patreon items that are opted into Foundry's Patreon integration. So not all Patreon creators are going to use the Foundry Patreon integration. Some are going to deliver things manually, whether that's through a zip file or through a manual link. For the Patreon that delivers via a zip file or via a manual link, for example, they have a separate hosted link that they change the URL for every month. We'll go over that in a section later in this video after we cover other ways to purchase and get the content. So check the timestamps and go ahead and jump to those sections where relevant, or just continue watching through this next session. Similar to Patreon, there is also the Ko-fi or Ko-fi platform that creators use to host their different creations. And you may find them with subscriptions and also with shops for one-time purchases. Right now we're taking a look at Wise, who is a friend of the channel and has a shop for one-time purchases on Foundry. And this is where you can purchase some of those packs if you wanted to go through this versus the marketplace directly for Wise. Now, important to note with Ko-fi is that there is not a direct integration with Foundry. So all of the one-time purchases and subscriptions through Ko-fi that are for FoundryVTT content are going to be redeemed either through keys on Foundry, through direct links, or through zip files. We're going to go over how to actually redeem those keys or install via those last two methods here in just a little bit. You can skip ahead to those sections in the video via the timestamps, or watch this next section where we discuss places like DriveThruRPG. To close out our discussion of third-party platforms to get content on, we're going to hop over to DriveThruRPG. And this is a really large web store for downloadable content for RPGs. That's going to include PDFs, but also a lot of virtual tabletop files. And there's actually a section in the format filter for virtual tabletops that you can then refine to add FoundryVTT to see all of the content for Foundry Virtual Tabletop that is available. When you click on any of these, you'll have the purchase options. So here it says FoundryVTT. Basically, if it says FoundryVTT, that usually means there's going to be a key delivered to you upon your purchase that you can then redeem on your FoundryVTT account to then authenticate it with the Foundry servers and install the module or system from the Foundry add-on browser. So basically, if this says FoundryVTT or it has a key associated with it, you'd also be able to see this in the add-on browser with an unlock icon next to it if you hadn't made that purchase. If these ever don't say FoundryVTT, for example, some of them will just say PDF, read the description for more information on the Foundry integration. That typically is going to mean that there is either a zip file of the module or a direct link that gets served to you for installing the manifest. If you have supported a project on Kickstarter that has a FoundryVTT fulfillment aspect of it, then you may also be getting that particular aspect of the Kickstarter fulfilled via DriveThruRPG. For example, the DC-20 system that had a very successful Kickstarter is serving up all of the FoundryVTT content through DriveThruRPG, where it will give you your key codes to redeem on Foundry. So you may have to come to DriveThru to redeem your different options from Kickstarters or other platforms like that. Now, DriveThruRPG is the largest third-party platform for this, but it's by no means the only third-party platform. Different systems may also have their own marketplaces, like Paizo for Pathfinder or Savage Worlds for their content, and the purchasing process is going to be pretty much the same, and it's all going to be delivered either through the keys that you redeem on your FoundryVTT account, direct zip files of the entire modules, or hard manifest links to directly install the module from their server hosting situation. So this applies to a whole variety of different platforms. We just wanted to showcase DriveThruRPG's searching features and the fact that it's the largest marketplace like this. And now we'll go ahead and take a look at redeeming those keys and those other installation options. To redeem content keys for Foundry, simply go to FoundryVTT.com and then go to your profile. So it'll be up in the top right. And once again, if you are not signed in, there'll be a little sign in button here instead of your name. When you click on it, from user profile, go to purchased content. And up here at the top, we have this activate key section. This is where you will copy and paste in that key that you were delivered, whether it's through drive-thru, an email, Patreon, or Ko-fi, etc. Go ahead and paste that in and click Activate Content. Once you have redeemed the key, it will show up down below in the Activated Content section. All of these are going to have your key that you actually used, the package link, and the activation date, as well as the name, of course, of the package. And this is how you can verify that you have in fact redeemed all of your appropriate keys for Foundry. And if you want to double check what specific package you have for that, you can click on the package link, and that is a direct link to the module page. So you can see where the package is and you can make sure that you actually have access to it. Once you've redeemed your key, then through the add-on browser, whether that's the system or module, you should then be able to search up the appropriate package and should now have the option to install rather than that kind of locked icon says not owned next to it. And as simple as that, you have installed your content. If you were given a direct link for installing the module, for example, some creators might have their own server for it, whether that's GitHub or a Google Drive or something like that, where they change the link to it every month. If it's on a subscription, then you can open up your install module or install system browser, depending upon which it is. And then down here at the bottom, you have the manifest URL, and you can just copy and paste that in here. I'm just using the link for a public module or one of our premium modules that is authenticated with Patreon, but this applies to any kind of module manifest. As long as this is a valid link to a valid module.json, then clicking install will begin to install the content. And you'll know this is working because you'll have this download section. Depending upon the size of the module, this can go pretty quick and you might miss it. But that is how you install a module with a manual link. For installing content modules that have a zip file or some other form of archive that has the entire module within it, you'll need to go into your Foundry user data folder in order to install that. If you are on a hosting service of some sort, then double check the documentation for that hosting service to figure out where that is and where you should put it. There also may be some options for uploading a zip file directly, so check the documentation there. If you are self-hosted and you don't know where your user data file is, if you go to the configure option in Foundry, this section here for user data path is the one that you want, and you can copy and paste that into your file browser to be able to navigate there, and then we will be able to move our zip file into the appropriate location and take care of that. To demonstrate here, I have the Foundry user data folder pulled up. And again, I just found the path for that in our settings, and I copy and paste that into my file browser of choice. And we have our Foundry user data directory. And then on the left, I have my downloads where I have the latest zip file of the JB2A Patreon module. And to put that into my modules, I'm going to go back to my user data section, and I'm going to click on data. If you've seen our video on storage and organization within Foundry, then this process should be fairly familiar to you, but if you haven't, the data folder is going to be everything that Foundry looks for the modules and systems, etc. So here you're going to choose either modules or systems, depending upon what the content you have is. And then inside of modules, you have all of your modules as folders. Now, if you are updating a previous version of a module that you downloaded manually, you're going to want to find that and go ahead and delete it, just because there might be wholly different files, or some of the files might have been renamed or changed between versions, and you don't want to have those extra versions running around. And then I'm going to cut and paste the zip file in here. And then with your archiving tool of choice, I like to use 7-zip, then you can extract the folder. And with the folder extracted, I can go ahead and delete my zip file. And then I want to find the folder that it got extracted to. You could also alternatively extract this in your downloads folder. I just like to have this already in my module section. And then for the module itself, you want to drill down into the folders a little bit. The important thing is you want the folder that is immediately above the module.json. And you can also double check by opening up the module.json. And I'm using VS Code here, but you can use any kind of text editor. And you want to see this ID section. It says JB2A_Patreon. That is the module ID. That is also what the folder that contains the module needs to be named. So if there's a mismatch, then you may need to look through a little bit more to make sure that's the appropriate folder. But we've got the appropriate folder, and now we can just move this up to our modules directory. And just to verify, module-0.7.9 that this came in is no longer needed. It is empty. We can delete that empty folder. You can see that JB2A Patreon is here. And now we're ready to open up Foundry. While you're doing all of this, you probably want to have Foundry disabled or turned off. Just that way, everything's nice and clean, and you're going to make sure that any of the content that you stick in here gets brought up whenever you initialize Foundry. So now we'll go ahead and launch Foundry, and we'll be able to verify that that module is in fact in place. So we have Foundry pulled up, and I'm going to go into my add-on modules where I added the JB2A module, and we can see that the JB2A-Patreon Complete Collection version 0.7.9 shows up in our add-on modules. And there we go. Once that is visible here, that also means we're going to be able to activate it inside of our worlds, etc. So we've got access to that module. And that is all there is to installing a module via a zip file directly. Again, depending upon your particular hosting situation, whether you're self-hosted or cloud-hosted, or you're on a hosting service like the Forge, etc., then the process might be slightly different. Example, the path for user data might be a little different, or your hosting service might provide a handy little option to add a module directly from a zip where they just have you upload the zip file instead of having to drill down and upload the kind of loose module folder for you. Just check your hosting services documentation for that. Now that we've gotten our content installed, whether it is premium or free, let's talk about how to actually access it and get using it. So for game systems that we've installed, the place where you're going to interact with that or select it is going to be when you hit Create World in your game worlds. You've got all of the fields for creating your world, and then you have the game system dropdown, and that's where all of your systems are going to populate, whether they are free or premium. So here we can select DC20 and create a new game world for that game system. And that's where you're going to interact with the game system, and we'll have to actually dive into a world in order to take advantage of our modules. If your new content is a module, then when you load into your Foundry world, if you go into your game settings and manage modules, then you'll be able to find it there. For example, we've got all of our BaileyWiki pieces here. So if I want to enable those, I simply click activate, and we have everything that we need. And for that JB2A module that we added, we can also select it here as well and save our module settings. With our modules activated, we can go ahead and grab the content that we acquired. Every module is going to be a little bit different in terms of the content that's offered and exactly how it is delivered. So check the documentation for those modules and content pieces to see where to actually access all of that. Most of them are going to have some information in the compendiums. So for example, if we look for JB2A, we've got the JB2A sequencer macros here for us, and also these 5e actors that have a bunch of actors for spell effects that we can import or we can drag out onto our scenes to use there. For adventure type compendiums, this is a sample, but if you have an adventure, then there will be an adventure compendium that has an option to import the adventure with all of the different assets and items in it for you. For the BaileyWiki modules, we have things a little bit different than most. So when you click on our scenes compendium, it actually fires a macro from MassEdit that has a special browser that allows us to organize things a little bit better. And from here, you can import scenes, etc. We also use the Mass Edit Presets browser here to power our deployable presets that you can use to make modular scenes. For example, we've got this nice little preset that we can drag in, and so you can use this to browse through things. So a little bit different from compendiums that most modules use. So again, check up on the documentation for any of the content modules that you bring in to know exactly how to access that. That's going to wrap up this video covering the different ways to get content for Foundry and how to bring them into your games. We hope that this has been informative and interesting to you and has helped you to learn more about all the different ways you can find and bring in content for Foundry, as well as illuminated some of these slightly less intuitive ways of grabbing content. Let us know in the comments if you still have questions about any of these techniques or methods, and of course, if we missed any really big ones that you think people should know about. And if you want our recommendations for how to stay organized with all of this content, particularly with compendiums, then check out our earlier video on storage and organization in FoundryVTT. Once again, this has been Zephyr with the BaileyWiki channel. If you liked this video, then subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content, and consider becoming a patron. Not only do you support the channel, we also gain access to all of the modular systems and scenes that we've made for FoundryVTT, including the gorgeous ones that have been in the background for today's video. Again, it's been Zephyr. Thank you so much for watching, happy gaming, and have a good one.